Good morning and welcome to the Daily Aus. It's Tuesday the 31st of March. I'm Billi FitzSimons.
I'm Sam Koslowski.
Yesterday, one of Australia's biggest manhunts in history came to an end with the news that police had shot dead a man believed to be fugitive Dezi Freeman. You might remember that name. Last August, Freeman killed 2 police officers and injured a third at a property in regional Victoria. And he's been on the run ever since. That was until yesterday. Today, we will go through what we know about the killing of one of Australia's most wanted criminals. But first, here is a quick message from the TDA team.
My name is Orla. I'm the content production manager at the Daily Aus, which means I'm the person here who makes all the production things happen. Like right now, I'm the producer in the room making sure everything is running smoothly during this record. Not always an easy task when you have such a small team. The Daily Aus is an independent media company committed to delivering accessible news to young people. If you want to support us and help us reach new audiences, hit follow on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. And thank you for being a part of the TDA community.
Billi, you were about halfway through your editorial meeting yesterday morning. It was
Before you barged in.
9:15, 9:20 a.m. when I ran in with a breaking news alert that police believe that they have killed Dezi Freeman. I want to get something out of the way first, though, before we dive into the background of this story and what happened yesterday. We're saying the word believe here. Explain the framing that the police have applied on this case and why police are saying that they believe it's Dezi Freeman.
Yeah, this is always something confusing that happens because often when police announce that there has been a killing of some sort or even an allegation of a crime being committed, the media will name the person, but police officers will often then hold a press conference and say, well, we actually can't identify the person. In this case, because they have killed or allegedly killed Dezi Freeman, they now need to undergo a formal identification process. Right. From what I can tell, it's mostly just a procedural thing, but they do believe, and they were very explicit in the press conference that they held yesterday, that it was Dezi Freeman who was killed. There was definitely a man killed. Yeah. And they were very explicit in saying that this is all in relation to the Dezi Freeman case. They confirmed that they spoke to the family members of the 2 police officers who were killed by Dezi Freeman last August. Yeah. So they're very clear in naming him. They've just said that there does now need to be a formal process to identify him, but they believe it's him.
So that's why there's this kind of funny modality around what the police are saying. You would have to think that they're not going to call a press conference, contact the families of the deceased officers if they weren't absolutely confident that this is the man that they were looking for. And it's been a long journey to get here. It's been over 6 months. And before we explain what happened yesterday and how this whole kind of came to an end, let's go back to who Dezi Freeman was.
Okay, so it was the 26th of August last year.
So over 6 months ago now.
It's 7 months. Yeah. It's been so long.
Yeah.
So it was at that time that 10 police officers rocked up to this property in Pawnpukka, which is a town in regional northeast Victoria. That is where a man named Dezi Freeman was living with his family in a kind of caravan, kind of bus kind of thing. And police were there for a warrant related to alleged historical sexual offences they believed were committed by Dezi Freeman. Now, what happened after the police rocked up is basically what they described as an ambush. Yeah. So Dezi Freeman then shot and killed 2 police officers and injured a third. Then what we know is that he took off into the bush, and that was the last time he was ever seen. Police said that he had guns with him when he did take off into the bush. And then what ensued from there was him being on the run and one of Australia's biggest ever manhunts. Yeah. There were police involved in this investigation from every single state and territory in Australia. And there was even police that flew over from New Zealand to be part of this investigation, which I think just kind of shows the extent of the investment that went into finding Dezi Freeman. We now know he's been able to stay alive for 7 months on the run in the bush.
Yeah. I mean, it was Victoria's largest ever manhunt. Yes. It was Australia's largest ever tactical police operation. It almost shut down the town of Pawnpukka there for many, many weeks, if not months, because of the overwhelming presence of police there. I remember the one kind of odd element about this case was us all getting our heads around the fact that Dezi Freeman described himself as a sovereign citizen. Just remind us of the context of what that meant and that idea.
Yes, so a sovereign citizen is someone who doesn't believe in the standard laws and governments of where they live. So just like you or I hope, try to comply with the laws and the governments of where we live. A sovereign citizen is someone who doesn't believe in that and doesn't believe that they need to comply in that. So when he was issued with this warrant for these historical sexual offences, our understanding is that he doesn't believe that he needs to comply with law.
Right, so he kind of doesn't believe that the police of Victoria have the authority to arrest him for crimes because he's not actually a citizen of Victoria.
Exactly.
Okay. And so there's this really complex kind of political identity that's overlaid onto this case. Police are ambushed at the property, 2 killed. It's been 7 months since then. And I did think up until yesterday that at least the strong message from Victoria Police was that Dezi Freeman was dead.
Well, that's exactly what they thought. It was only last month in February that Victorian Police announced that they did believe that Dezi Freeman had killed himself, and they said that there was enough evidence to suggest that, but what they didn't have was a body. So that's why the investigation continued. But it kind of turned, from what I understood from what police were telling us, it turned from an investigation into where Dezi Freeman is and more into where his body is, because they believed that he had killed himself.
Yeah, there was a stage there where police were bringing in cadaver dogs to the site, which are dogs that can smell the scent of dead bodies. And so the framing of the investigation certainly was that they were looking for a corpse rather than a suspect.
Yes, and the evidence they had, they said that 2 hours after he ran into the bush on that initial shooting, so the 26th of August, there was a single gunshot heard coming from the bush. And so that is why they believed that he had killed himself. However, we discovered yesterday that that is not what happened, and he has been on the run for 7 months.
Hey guys, this is my friend Rosa. Say hi, Rosa.
Hi, Rosa.
She's cooking up the deep dive video that you're watching right now. Rosa, what do you want them to do?
Subscribe.
You heard the woman. Now back to the video.
So, Billy, we're talking about the shooting of Dezi Freeman, the suspect who is believed to have killed 2 police officers and injured a third in northeast regional Victoria 7 months ago now. So in the end, they now believe that Dezi Freeman was actually alive and had managed to stay alive for these 7 months. What do we know about where Dezi Freeman was found yesterday and what happened when police arrived at that site?
So I will say, before we get into everything that we do know happened, during the press conference yesterday, police were at pains to explain that they don't know everything at this stage, and their answer to most questions from journalists was that will form part of the investigation. And they were very clear in saying that we are now kind of only at the start of this investigation, now that he is dead, of finding out what exactly did happen in the last 7 months.
So very much a what we know so far update.
Yes. What we think we understand is that Dezi Freeman was found at least 100 kilometres, maybe as much as 200 kilometres away from Popunka, which is where the initial shooting was last August. And they believe that in order for him to have got from Popunka to potentially 200 kilometres away, he had to have had assistance of some kind in order to get there, because that's a long way to go.
So you're talking about somebody in a vehicle, potentially?
Potentially. They have literally revealed no details. It seems like they don't even know themselves. They've been so focused on where is Dezi Freeman that only now will they look at whether or not he had assistance to travel that far over 7 months and to stay alive. Because obviously he needs food. I mean, all of the essentials. He needs water in order to survive. So they believe it would have been near impossible for him to do this all alone.
And so they don't really have an idea just yet in terms of if point A is the shooting and point B is where they found him yesterday. They're not sure about how long he spent in point A and then moved to point B, whether he was in point B the next day after the shooting and has been there for 7 months. They're not quite sure of that, right?
No idea from what they said. What they do know is that he was found in this kind of they said this, it was kind of like a long caravan / container type thing.
I imagined kind of a shipping container in my head.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they said it was kind of like that, kind of like a caravan, which kind of sounds similar to what he was initially found in back in August when they rocked up to the property.
Yeah, okay. And so did they go to the property knowing that he was there, essentially?
Yes.
Right.
And you might have seen some reporting that they got a tip-off. So that's been, again, it's kind of that confusing thing where media has said that, but police have not confirmed that. And what's interesting is they said that they will never confirm that, from what I can understand, because they want all tip-offs to be confidential. Right. And they want, I presume not just in this case, but in all future cases, in order for people to help police, they need the general public to know that their tip-offs will be confidential and that no information will be revealed about that, because there was a $1 million reward for information that would lead to the arrest or the police finding Dezi Freeman. And so I don't think that police will ever reveal any information about that.
Okay. So whether they get it through a tip or not, they kind of know where he is.
Exactly.
They go to this property.
Yes.
And was the plan there for police, based on what we've been told, was the plan to kill him straight away?
So they've said that it was at 5:30 a.m. on Monday that they went to this property, and they said that they kind of started a negotiation.
Oh, interesting.
They wanted, in fact, now that I think about it, no, the intention was not to kill him, because they did say that they wanted him to peacefully surrender and that they gave him the chance to peacefully surrender. They said they're understanding. Again, at this stage, everything is forming part of the investigation, yes. But they said that they do believe that he came out in a blanket. They believe he was armed. And so that initially happened at 5:30 a.m. that police went to the property. And it was at 8:30 a.m. that he was shot and confirmed dead.
Okay, so a 3-hour standoff there.
And we don't know what was part of that negotiation, if there was ever a negotiation. All we know is there was a standoff that ended in a man believed to be Dezi Freeman to be shot dead.
And police didn't even confirm if Freeman shot at them, right?
No, they didn't say that. All they said, again, the police that were giving the press conference is different to the police that were at the property, which is why I think that they can't share the exact details yet, because it all goes through this process. But all the police at the press conference said is they believed that the police were justified in shooting him. They didn't say whether or not Dezi Freeman shot at the police officers that were on site. They did say they believed he was armed.
I also note that the commissioner giving the press conference also said that the officers at the site acted with textbook professionalism. So I think there's a kind of understanding amongst Victoria Police that it was the right call to kill this suspect. But what happens from here, though, because it's one thing to say at a press conference that this is the right thing to do, but there's a bit more to it, right?
So I think the next steps, the two main things that they have to confirm is A, they have to formally identify him and then confirm that to the public. And then the second thing is to investigate if they did have any help. That seems like a real priority for police right now, because obviously that would be a crime if you are someone who is helping one of Australia's most wanted criminals. Assisting anyone in a crime is a crime in itself.
Yeah.
And so that seems to be one of their big priorities at the moment.
Billi, there's still reactions to this series of events still coming out as we go to air now. The Police Association of Victoria, they released a statement yesterday saying our members said they would find him. They did. We've also heard from Victorian Premier, an opposition leader, and local community members. Thank you for that update in what is a big development in one of the most notorious cases in modern Australian history.
Thank you for barging into our editorial meeting yesterday to tell us it's crazy news. It was absolutely breaking news, and it brings to an end one of Australia's biggest ever manhunts.
We'll make sure to update everybody when there's a clear conclusion to this investigation with some more details from police, which will, I'm sure, be a couple of weeks or months away. That's all we've got for today's podcast, though. If you're around this afternoon, we'll be releasing our evening headlines later on. Until then, have a beautiful day.